Welcome back to the channel, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We're out here at OCA MX. This is my local motocross track. I've been riding here for years. And today we're gonna do a little bit of a comparison video about a topic that's been talked about a lot in the motorcycle community as of recently. We're gonna compare keeping your feet on the pegs versus pointing your leg through ruts. So I think in any type of riding, there's a lot of value to keeping your feet on the pegs. And I have my own opinions on this as far as off-road riding goes, but today we're gonna specifically kind of isolate this to corners. So I've got my LitPro device on my helmet. We're gonna do some lap time comparisons and collect some video and see how it kind of breaks down, keeping our feet on the pegs versus kind of pointing our leg through the turn. So let's go jump on the bike. I'm gonna go ahead and do two lap sprints. The first one I'm gonna do normal, where I'm just pointing my leg through corners. And the second one, I'm gonna try and keep my feet on the pegs pretty much 100% of the time for 2 laps. And I'm gonna try and take the same lines both times. So that finish line, the finish line is that tabletop over there, so that's where we'll start recording. Shake it out. We'll go reset. All right, we just took a little rest to kind of recover our heart rate. Now we're back out for another 2-lap sprint. This time, we are gonna strive to keep the feet on the pegs 100% of the time. I'm gonna try, no promises. They might slip off a little bit, but we're gonna stay just like this. Feet on the pegs the whole time. So we'll start recording on this tabletop over here. Now, before we dive into all the numbers and the lap times, I quickly wanted to share kind of my general experience after doing this test on the motocross track. And that is that some of my first observations were it's much easier for me to actually point my inside leg through the corners. I've been practicing this for a lot of years, and it's pretty much just my default, and it allows me to carry kind of my natural intensity when I'm riding the motocross track. I don't have to think about it that much. Whereas when I try to practice keeping both feet on the foot pegs during a rut or a corner, it takes a little bit more mental energy and focus. On the motocross track, this is really a skill that I've been trying to practice. But for off-road terrain, I have a much higher tolerance for allowing my feet to come off of the foot pegs during corners. And that's mainly just because in off-road terrain, it's far more unpredictable and you often have a lot less traction in an off-road scenario, whereas the motocross track usually has a little bit better traction. So for this test, we kind of just isolated our comparison to ruts found on the motocross track. But that's just kind of my general thoughts. But let's take a look at what the lap times had to say about this comparison. While examining the lap times, you'll notice that my fastest lap is lap 1 while pointing my leg. However, if you look at my fastest lap while keeping my feet on the pegs, it's actually only 0.2 of a second slower. So my first observation is that the times are really close overall. Another really important observation is if you look at the total session, which is both laps combined, I was actually fastest while keeping my feet on the pegs. It also appears to be a lot more consistent, as lap 1 and lap 2, while keeping my feet on the pegs, is only about a half a second different, whereas lap 1 and lap 2, while pointing my leg, appears to have a much larger difference in the lap times. So after just looking at these numbers, my initial thought is that with as little practice as I have had while keeping my feet on the pegs, it's already showing some pretty promising results on the motocross track. So I would only imagine that with more practice, this technique would have better results because it's already proving to be comparable, if not maybe just slightly faster. But there's a lot more that we can learn from if we actually dig a little bit deeper into the numbers and look at what the LitPro data can show us. Now that we're inside the LitPro app, we can actually see the entire track layout. It doesn't actually correlate with the satellite imagery. That's just because the track has been updated since then. But what's really cool is we are currently viewing my fastest lap while pointing my leg through the turns. But if we drag this second layer over, we can now compare that lap against my fastest lap while keeping my feet on the foot pegs. So you'll be able to press play and look at all sorts of data and compare back to back each lap to each other. It gets a little confusing because I have the same profile picture on both of the icons. However, for your reference, this versus lap 2 that's highlighted in yellow is the lap that I completed while keeping my feet on the foot pegs. Let's jump into the first turn to see what we can learn from some of this data. So after watching this first turn, you'll notice one pretty significant difference, and that is that the lap 2, which is keeping my feet on the pegs, is actually significantly faster, and we've already pulled out a pretty big lead just after one turn. And you'll notice that most of that lead is generated through the middle section of the turn and the exit. You can take a look at the difference in speed even and see that it's about 3 or 4 miles per hour faster. So this kind of goes against what my natural feeling is after doing the comparison, is that sometimes it feels a little bit more passive or not quite as aggressive or intense to keep your feet on the pegs. However, the numbers don't lie, and it's proof that you're able to carry a little bit more roll speed and just natural speed through the corners. Another interesting observation I made after looking at some of these corners is on turn number 3. If we scroll through and let this play, you'll notice that I actually have a little bit of a lead while keeping my feet on the pegs. However, for just a second there, my other lap catches up, and then that gap is then regained on the exit. So let's go back through and watch that a little bit closer. So if you'll notice right here, as we're going along this straightaway, the lap 2, which is me keeping my feet on the pegs, I'm a little bit ahead of pointing my leg through the turns. However, a lot of that gap is made up really closely on the entrance of the turn. So I think what's happening there is as I'm preparing for the turn, I'm able to set up a little bit later or carry more speed into the entry while I'm kind of riding my normal routine, which is pointing my leg through the turn. But what this is doing is it might be affecting my mid-turn and then my stage 3, my exit of the turn speed, because you'll notice that that gap is then made up again as I exit the turn. So another lesson that may be extracted from this is that by keeping your feet on the pegs, it may require you to set up a little bit earlier for the turns, but that may be benefiting you in the long run as you're able to carry more roll speed through the middle and the exit of the turn. So those are a couple of the biggest observations that I made just looking at the LitPro data. But overall, if we examine both those and the lap times, there's a lot of different things that we can learn. My major takeaway from practicing this technique is that there's really just pros and cons to both. For me, it's too difficult to simply say that one technique is better than the other for all riding, especially when considering off-road riding. There are just too many variables at play, and the terrain is far too unpredictable. Keep your feet on the pegs as much as possible. However, if you need a little safety when managing those slippery off-road turns, it's okay to put that foot out for security. If you liked this video and you're into this kind of stuff, then I invite you to go check out our free training where we share our 10 off-road riding secrets. It's jam-packed full of all sorts of drills and examples just like this, where you can learn to save time and start riding faster. Head over to ridewiththeknights.com, sign up for the free training, and start learning today. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the moto action, and thank you for riding with the Knights.